Welcome to the Cyber Journey Show brought to you by CyberX. I am your host, Daniel Pinsky. This is the one and only place where you're going to get key insights and key learnings from cybersecurity leaders and entrepreneurs. Look, we look to our great leaders to model for us, to show us how to think, how to act, and how to behave. My goal is that by sharing with you their learnings from their journey, is that we can apply those to ours and grow not only as individuals, but as a community, as a nation. Cyber Journey Nation, we have an amazing guest today. She's currently the Business Information Security Officer for one of the largest banks in North America. She's also a co-founder of Women in Cybersecurity and Technology. Her journey has brought her all the way from Kenya, Africa, to Alberta, Canada. There is a lot to unpack here, and there's a lot of wisdom to extract. So let's meet my friend and soon to be yours, Sherifat. Sherifat, welcome to the show. Based on the discussions that we've had so far and the prep and research that I've done, I think that the one word I can use to really encapsulate your journey, and I think something that would really resonate with our audience, is resilience. Resilience because of your background, resilience because of your gender, and resilient because of the obstacles that you've had to face and overcome. And I think of, in spite, maybe because of those obstacles, I also see somebody who has celebrated a lot of success in her career. I also see somebody who gives back not only to the community, but to people. You sit on the advisory board for the Girls and Women Technological Empowerment Organization, Women in Management and Business, and you're the co-founder of Women in Cybersecurity and Technology. I mean, even right now, you're the Business Information Security Officer for one of the largest banks in North America. So like I said, a lot of success. What is maybe something that you believe about becoming successful that others might disagree with?
Thank you, Daniel. Like when you were talking about me, I actually thought you were talking about someone else.
No, it's you.
Thank you so much for the kind words. So to your question, right? Surprisingly, I would say many things that a lot of people they feel do not matter about being successful. We could talk about good luck. Some people don't believe there's anything like luck. We could talk about the role of God. I believe in God, so some people may not. But one thing I would like to talk about is your transferable skills. And the reason why I'm speaking about that is often an aspect of our lives where people do not really appreciate. So what do I mean by that? Um, Transferable skills are those skills that you may necessarily do not learn on your 9 to 5 job or in any school, but they're just things that come to you naturally. For instance, you negotiate with your kids as mothers. I'm a mom.
I have no doubt that you do.
Exactly. You negotiate with them almost on a daily basis. You negotiate with your partner. You work under pressure. So imagine someone who, after high school or after middle school, after high school, decides to work in a high pressure environment like McDonald's.
Mm.
They have to produce food immediately. And that person goes on to become an exec later in a Fortune 500 or something. Some of these skills in which they learned working under pressure actually will contribute to their success. So this is me saying some of these transferable skills, which we really take for granted, to be honest, are quite important and they still matter. And they actually set some people apart from being successful or not. In my case, I'll say it's many things, right? My background, some of the things I've had to go through in life, that just made me believe that, yes, you will be successful at this. You need to put your mind to it and then you make it work.
That's a very good point. There's a really good book called The CEO Next Door. And the premise of that book is they looked at CEOs across North America. And what they were trying to understand is what makes a good CEO. And they looked at things like, obviously, like background and education and, upbringing. And one of the interesting and I think amazing things, and which speaks to what you're talking about now, which they found is that for many of the great CEOs, is the harder that their lives were growing up and the more obstacles, the more trials that they had, it gave them that resilience and the grit that they needed to eventually fill that position. And I agree with you. There are a lot of skills which you can learn in other jobs and other aspects of your life, which then inform you as you work in this industry. So yeah, I completely agree with you, and that's very valuable insight. So I mean, I think one of the things that's really important to all of us, or certainly that can help us on our journeys, is having mentors or people that can guide us, or people that can give us a platform for our voice. So for you in your career, who's been a really important mentor for you and why? And what did that person do for you? And how did it affect you?
Very interesting question. And I was a couple of weeks ago, I was looking at my life and surprisingly, I couldn't pinpoint just one person who had reached out to or who has guided me. I have had many people guide me in my life. Should I say from early on in my life, like when I was a child, my mom gave me a lot of basic trainings, the things I
Hmm.
needed. This is how you need to be. You need to, life skills. She started off from there. Unfortunately, I lost her at a very early age, so I couldn't still benefit from that wisdom which she had. But looking at the life of my dad, who was an executive director, worked 33 years in a bank in Africa, one of the leading banks in Africa, rose from being a clerk to being an executive director in the same company for 33 years. So all of those obstacles. So his life alone was worth emulating. I remember when I was in school and growing up, I just used to look up to, I can't afford to fail this man. He was a very busy dad, and just his life was an example for me. And then when I got ahead to the university, I met my husband. And there's something surprisingly, actually went to two universities, right? So at my very first university, where I met my husband on the first of my first grade, my results were poor in my first year.
Oh no.
I'll share more about that later.
Oh no.
But I wanted to talk about how he guided me. Even it was a boyfriend then, but he really guided me to be the best. He gave me. I had another opportunity to go to another university because I didn't want to carry on with the poor results and end up with a very bad result. I knew what I was capable of doing. So I left that university to another university. But we still continued having the relationship. And he mentored me. Throughout my university days, I didn't want to fail again. So there were two people I didn't want to disappoint. It was him
Hmm.
because he knew when I failed the first time, and my dad. So I've had the opportunity to be mentored by these people in my close circle, you see. And then when I started working about fantastic managers, at my very first manager, she said to me, she said, I can see what you're capable of doing, even though this is your first time working in a 9 to 5 environment. I see that you've got a lot in you. I'm willing to showcase you. I'm willing to take you to meetings where you can speak up and your voice will be heard, and you need to have this confidence. That was my first manager who happened to be a female. So you see, I've had fantastic people all around, right from my beginning to here. So I can't really say this is the most important. I think they've all played very important roles in my life, and it's what it is. And this is to say that generally in life we can't have one mentor and say, oh, this is my mentor I'm going to go to for everything. There are
Yeah.
different people who
Yeah.
play significant roles in our lives.
Yeah. And I think I read an article. about you telling a story about the kind of this first woman manager, where she saw the work ethic in you and she saw the ambition in you, and she felt that your voice deserved a platform, and you were very thankful for that. And I think to quote you, what you said is it was an amazing example of women lifting up women, and you learned a very valuable lesson, when that happened. So what did that lesson mean to you in that moment? And how does that lesson still shape your journey today?
Absolutely. So that lesson taught me that sometimes it's not just your work, right? You can't just do it and be there buried in your work. It shows me the importance of networking. It shows me the importance
Yes.
of a sponsor, of someone who will mention your name when the doors are closed, in meetings where you can't sit in. So that showed me. And that now influenced the way I support people. It has really influenced my way of not holding back in terms of the support I can give. I've had someone call me in the middle of the night to say, "Oh, I'm sorry. I have this interview coming up and I'm
Hmm.
freaking out. I don't know what to do." And I've
Hmm.
sit for 30 minutes to say, "Hey, breathe. This is what you need to do. What is the role about?" And we go through everything together.
Yeah.
This has really made me selfless because I doubt I'll be here if some people didn't, give up some things for me or didn't have to part the way for me.
I agree with you 100%. I think really what we're talking about is the ability to build and foster and nurture relationships. And like I've done the same thing, people who I've had a privilege to lead, and eventually that they move on. I have an open door policy with all of them, and many of them do call me up and ask me for, advice and guidance, and I'm happy to do it. I think, pouring into other people, in turn pours into myself. So, on that topic of building relationships, successful relationships, which we all need to foster and grow and nurture, like what kind of advice? I know you mentioned networking, which is obviously an important ingredient, but what other advice would you have for people listening about how to go about building those paramount cornerstone relationships in our career?
Okay, yeah. So relationships generally, I think the trend I've seen nowadays is that people just have this mindset of they want something from someone and they're going to go ask for it and get it and whatever, be it mentorship, be it coaching, or be whatever it is. But we need to remember that relationship is a two-way thing.
Yes,
People in a relation, and that's why it's called a relationship, right? It's not just
absolutely.
a
Two-way
client
street,
after
two-way
it.
street. Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. Yeah.
People need to benefit from each other while in a relationship. If you're looking to build a relationship with someone, and I'm not only talking about monetary or whatever
Yeah.
you need to also see how you contribute to that relationship.
Yeah.
Don't always expect to go to someone and just take and take and take. After a while, it will become one sided, and the person whom you're taking from will get tired. But if the relationship is beneficial to both parties will nurture it, both parties will put in the work to maintain that relationship, and both parties will benefit from it. So, what am I saying? You need a sponsor, a mentor, or someone whom you really appreciate what they're doing and you feel they will add value to your life, to your career. Go to them, or also go with something you can contribute to what you're doing. Do they have things that they're interested in? Are you supporting them in those things? Are you even sharing them in what they're doing? For instance, if they make a post, say on a social media platform or something, are you supporting that post? Are you sharing it? Are they seeing you as an ally, not just someone who takes and takes and takes and have nothing to give? I think that's very important in building relationship. And it's
Yeah.
not about monetary. It's not about
No, I agree.
there's so many things. Like a lot of people who we see who believe I've got it all. They've also got their needs. They've also
Yeah.
got what they need in which you can offer to help as well.
I agree. I think it's really critical that in any relationship, certainly kind of a mentoring or a coaching type relationship, that both people are learning and both people are growing. And I agree with you. Like the biggest joy that I have is seeing, people that I'm working with grow and get better and excel and mature. And I agree with you 100%. It's certainly more rewarding than any monetary compensation, right? It's that feeling of feeling full inside. So yeah, I definitely 100% agree with you. Let's just shift a little bit. Obviously, throughout your career, certainly my career, we've had instances where, we've had to deal with the fear monster, or we weren't sure that we were up to the task. And I know in your story, I read an article about when you got an opportunity with InterSwitch. You didn't feel necessarily if you were ready. Like, how am I worthy to get this role? And I'm interested to really understand what that was like for you and what that experience was like for you, and what did you learn about yourself in going through that experience?
Okay, so that's like the topic now, the imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
When we feel
Yes,
ready to do stuff and we just believe this is where, and to be honest, till now, I sometimes get that.
absolutely.
One of the
Normal.
things, exactly, one of the things that just keeps pushing me is the experience you just mentioned, my past experience.
Yes.
But there was a time I was feeling this way, and I overcame that. And I did not know only overcome, I actually did exceedingly well at it. So back to the InterSwitch story, I had that interview and to come head the team of a fintech company as big as InterSwitch in Nigeria. And I was like, me, I don't think I can do this, right? My husband was the one that actually encouraged me. Like I said, this is part of the mentorship in which he's been giving me since I've met him. And he says, "Hey, they reached out to you. Why not just give it a they saw something in you, and that's why they reached out to you, right?
Yeah, go for it.
Exactly, go for it."
Go for it.
And I went for it, and I did very well. The interviewer at that point said to me, "It's like you really understand our needs. It's like you have worked with us and you actually know the pain areas. We really like to have you on board." And I went back home and said, "Oh my God, what if I let the imposter syndrome consume me and I didn't take up this opportunity?" So when I remember that today and I see an opportunity or something I'm interested in, I go ahead and do it. And it's something I also like to encourage everyone. You can't, some of us like to cross the T's and dot the I's and
Hmm.
get it all done before we start. But at the same time, if you are not doing it, there's probably someone half as good as you doing it. So why not you? Okay.
I agree with you, and and you were mentioning we all struggle from that at certain points in our careers. Certainly myself, and yeah, I mean, what I've read regarding that in the past is kind of like an 80-20. When you have about 80% of the information, you're never going to have 100%. And if you wait for 100%, you're going to be paralyzed, right, by over analysis. Is when you have that 80% of information, you generally have enough to make an informed decision. And I agree with you. I don't necessarily believe in losses. I believe in winning or learning. And if you turn those step backs into learning and you turn those stumbling blocks into stepping stones and those wounds into wisdom, then have you really lost? Perhaps not. But in that growth, I mean, now in your role as a BSO for a major bank in North America, so you could keep growing and maturing as a leader yourself. How do we level up as leaders? And like, what are those things that right now in your life that you're focusing on? And what are the things that you believe we should be focusing on?
Okay. So as leaders generally, I think we should take a step back and say, so who is a leader?
Huh?
So a leader is not necessarily in your title or
I
in
agree.
position.
Oh, I agree.
Have a very junior colleague or someone else being a leader. So a leader, someone who is able to impact on people's life, um, able to enforce or initiate change in a positive way, takes the initiative to drive something into a conclusion, to see it through. Someone who gets in the room and changes things for better. That is what a leader is.
Yep.
And I don't think that has to do anything with a title or your position. Or it's just who you are, right? It's you naturally want to do things better. So to the question, what should a leader be focusing on, right? So if you consider yourself a leader, critically look at yourself and say, how much of this positive change am I able to influence? And apart from being able to influence, or how many people are benefiting from this? What is the ripple effect of these courses in which I'm doing, or whatever I believe in that I'm working on? What is the impact to one person or to the other? A leader, should really be focused on should maybe I should say should not be focused on how many people are cheering me on, but you actually watch out for those few people who tries to make you better. So what I'm trying to say, if you're leading a team or a group of people, you should actually have some set of people who are trying to make you a better person. So you don't have a lot of time as leaders, people really focus on the people that celebrate them and cheers them on, and those are the people they believe are in their team. But there are some set of people who are bold enough, who are courageous enough to call out what you do that's that can make you better, basically. So as leaders, and to your question, I think that is what every leader should be focusing on. And the reason for that is it makes you better. You're already a leader, you're doing this thing. If you have that rare opportunity of someone who says, hey, you can do this better, this is the way I think you should do this, why not think it through this way? Then you really need to focus on such people, because they are only gonna make you better. But at the same time, critiquing people may take different forms, right? So the manner in which you criticize also matter. If someone comes up to me and talks to me in a manner that just makes me feel bad, I'm not going to take your advice, or I'm not going to look at it. But if you come constructively, tells me this is what you need to do, this, yes, then I'll appreciate that as a leader. So I think that's what a leader should really be focusing on.
Thank you for that insight. And I think you're right on point, right? So, Stephen Covey said, leadership is a choice, not a position. And I agree with you. You don't need a million people following you in order to be a leader. And I think the best leaders that I've ever worked with or worked for are those that are so invested in my development and my growth that I'm more than willing to do anything for them, and I'm more than willing to follow them. And in my opinion, that's the mark of a true leader. So I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. Let's change gears again. I know before we kind of talked about imposter syndrome and struggling, but we at some point in our careers will stumble, or will fall, or will fail. And that does give us an opportunity to reflect and come back better. So maybe give us an example in your career where you've had a stumble, and what did you do, and what did you learn because of it?
Okay, great. So I've had many failures in my life, right? I shared one earlier when I went to my first university and my results were poor. That I still consider a failure in my life, but I was able to pull through. But the one in which I can relate with has to do with um, the passing an exam, the CISSP exam.
Tough exam, tough
Yeah,
exam.
the tough. So coincidentally, it was a time when I was the head of security at InterSwitch.
Yep.
It was the highlight of my career. I was doing amazingly well. We were doing a lot of technical things. We were seeing everything security in the box. So I was in the middle of it. Firewalls, from firewalls to application security, the total thing. end-to-end to governance and risk. I was doing it all. And I felt, oh, what a perfect time to go write this exam. What can come up in these questions? I've probably seen it before. I went with all confidence and I was shocked. The questions shocked me and I failed the exam. And then I went back, and when I stopped that exam, my initial reaction was, what is this? Why would the exam questions be like this? It's so unrealistic. It's nothing about on the job. It's nothing related to security. I'm never gonna write this exam again. That was my immediate reaction. Well, after a couple of weeks, I took a step back. I thought about it and I realized, hey, who's losing here if you don't write this exam? You need this exam for your next level, what you intend to achieve. The organizers don't even care if you write it or not. You failed, you need to move on. And I took a step back and re-strategized. I actually went to read the manual because, true confession, the first time I was only relying on my ability and what I thought I knew and that. Then I took a step back, went back to actually go to look at, okay, how should I prepare for this exam? So I went back to the drawing board, did everything I was supposed to do. And after a year, I went back to rewrite the exam and I passed. So invariably, I share that story to say when we fail, it's an opportunity for us to learn,
Absolutely.
not for you to remain. I could have remained, say, oh, I failed CISSP. I'm never going to write it again. I forget about it. That way the exam conquered me, right? Well, I took a step back, re-strategized, and went back. And this time around, I was able to ace the exam. So I think that's an example of how I failed and what I did to overcome and my lessons from it.
And I think you did the best thing, right? You turned that loss into a learn. You stood back, you reflected, you asked yourself, what can I do differently next time? What is maybe something I didn't do the first time that I should have? And then you learned from that and it informed your next actions. And you came back better, more prepared. And then you passed. So yeah, and like that's all like failing or stumbling is. It's just an opportunity to learn and come back better. So yeah, no, that's a really good example, and thank you for that. I had one question. I know after you moved to Canada, you were working for GSK for a period of time. Eventually, you got an opportunity with United Farmers of Alberta. Can you kind of maybe describe how that part of your journey was like for you? You know, you moved to Canada in 2020. The pandemic's going crazy. I'm sure it was very difficult to move from, forget another country, another continent, with a family, small children. Like, what was that like?
Oh, well, I remember that and I still smile. And I think that period was really a test of my resiliency. That was
Go.
when I really realized what what I was capable of doing. And of course, with the support of my husband. So we made a decision that we wanted to move to Canada and we were planning to, according to our timeline, we will resign at our jobs in Nigeria, we'll move over and then, start our life here. And then the pandemic became worse. And as a result of the pandemic, meant that, everybody, we were all working from home, hiring new people, as a replacement. So many things had to change. It was a critical time. I was
Yeah.
also supporting GSK, Nigeria and South Africa, a couple of other countries in Africa as the IT manager. I couldn't just leave and, pack up everything and say I was leaving. But something was also sure. I wanted to move to Canada. And if you're familiar with the process of immigration, you had to move within a certain timeline. Otherwise, you have to extend it and all of those processes. I didn't want it to be extended. So we took the bold decision, got on a plane. It was more around a chartered flight for people who were moving to Canada at that time, because of course we know the airports were grounded, but we were able to leave Nigeria, and then we arrived here and it was a lot of work. Even thinking about the flight right now, how much my husband and I try to keep the kids' hands away from
Hmm.
touching everywhere, because of COVID, to keep their masks on. I couldn't even blink, throughout the flight. I don't think I slept for 30 minutes at a stretch because I had to make sure I was keeping an eye on everyone, okay, what's going to happen. And then when we finally landed, I think having a family here really helped. So my sister lives in Canada. She's been here with her family. So that support was a lot. Which I still remain thankful for. They welcomed. Of course, we had to be on isolation. And after the period of isolation, we then moved with the family, and they made our settling very, very easy for us. And I continue to work with my company. GSK was very supportive as well. So I continued to work with them, but it became unbearable because 8 a.m. in Nigeria was 1 a.m. here,
Hmm.
and sometimes
Wow.
12 midnight. So I was waking up in the middle of the night, doing my meetings,
Wow.
in the middle of the night, and still working, and then trying to sleep during the day. The
Wow.
irony is, during the day when you try to sleep, the kids are up and they
Yeah.
need you, and I had to just try and balance all that. But eventually, I couldn't sustain that, and I had to reprioritize. Even though I really enjoyed working for GSK, it wasn't the best for me at that time. I had to look for an opportunity here, and that was when I got the opportunity with United Farmers of Alberta. They gave me my first opportunity in Canada as a cybersecurity specialist. Absolutely fantastic organization. I enjoyed working. I enjoyed my role with them. The people were great. My manager was fantastic. He gave me all the support as a new person in Canada, and that really worked out for me. So invariably, it's not, I can't say I did it all by myself. Yeah, I sought for help, right? So I actually asked for help, reached out to people. Yeah, this is me, this is where, how can you? And I really took that help to make the journey a bit easier.
So it's about that relationship building
Exactly.
and, not being afraid to ask for help because in a lot of cases, people are very happy to lend you a hand. You just have to ask, right?
Yeah.
You just have to be vulnerable, even though it's obviously difficult. And, the community or the industry that we work in, there are a lot of helpful people out there, right? So, I mean, a lot of people listening to this show, right, they're younger in their career. Maybe they're college graduates. Maybe they've been in the professional world for a year or two. So, what would be that one general piece of life or career advice that you would give somebody if you were meeting with them?
Absolutely. Thank you for this question. And if I was in school or first year in my career, I had someone say this to me,
Okay.
I've been glad. I wouldn't have learned. So what I'm gonna say is, as a new person, either in school, you're about to graduate, or your first year in career, don't undermine the rules or skills which you acquire doing something else.
Yeah.
So this relates back to I think the first question about um, transferable skills.
Yeah.
Whatever your hands, whatever you find your hands doing, do it well.
Yes.
Do it well. You're actually learning from it. I have a quick story to share around that. So I talked about joining InterSwitch as head of information security. At some point, at the final interview, trying to understand who I was beyond my technical skills, they wanted to know, okay, what other thing? And the question came, okay, yeah, we see we've verified your technical skills, you've done well. What else about you, Sherifat? Why do you think we need to hire you? And then I remembered when I was at the bank before InterSwitch, there was a time they needed someone to do people to become a people's champion. It was totally not my job, but the way they wanted us to have like a forum where the younger colleagues would come up with what was bothering them, what they wanted to change at work, and they needed someone to be the liaison between management and the employees.
So a
And I took
bridge.
up that role exactly as the people champion. And I did it so well. We had fantastic team. We did so many things that was not related to work. And when I got asked that question at the interview at InterSwitch, that was the example I gave. And guess what? They said to me, "Oh, fantastic! We've been trying to do something like that.
Hmm.
Don't you
Hmm.
think, can we steal from this idea of yours?" I said, "Absolutely, and I can come do this here again. It's something I've done the first time, and I can do it. I have some lessons on how to make it better, and I can bring it here." So if I did not take up the opportunity at the bank, I wouldn't have had the privilege to talk about that and to say, yes, I did this, this is what
Hmm.
I achieved with it. So invariably, don't be afraid. Don't see hard work or an opportunity as extra work. See it as an opportunity to learn,
Yes.
to improve yourself, to make yourself better. Take up roles. Don't be afraid to take up additional roles or tasks. You are doing it for yourself. Few years later, you're going to look back and say, "Oh, I actually did this, did this."
Yeah.
And you never can tell when any of these experiences are going to work out better for you.
Yeah.
So go ahead and do it without. And that role at that time was I wasn't getting paid an extra for it, so it was like a free volunteering. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it paid off in the future.
I think you took a really good advantage of an opportunity to help yourself grow. And I think we both can say that, very often in life that, the more you give, the more you receive, right? Like
Yeah,
when you did that particular role, you didn't know that it was going to inform you. You didn't know that it was going to help you grow. You didn't know that it was going to help you get another role down the road. But, you took a chance, right? You stepped into probably a situation that was uncomfortable for yourself, and it worked. So yeah, no, it took a lot of courage for you to do that. I think your story is inspiring. Your journey is inspiring, and we can certainly talk and talk and talk. I just think you're a very inspirational person to speak to. How can Cyber Journey Nation learn more about you, what you have going on, and how to connect?
so I'm mostly active on LinkedIn,
Okay.
and it's just the way my name is, Sherifat Akinwonmi. If you look me up on LinkedIn, I try as much as possible to accept all my connection requests. I try to meet new people. I post stuff. Right now, just take a minute to quickly explain. One of the issues I see new immigrants facing, especially when people move from their country, is the ability to get that first opportunity. With no offense to the hiring managers or the recruiters, they also want to be sure they are hiring the best. But from an immigrant point of view, they have so many other things going on in their life. One of the things they really want to achieve is to get a job as soon as possible so that they can care for their family, take care of the bills. And so they often find themselves trying to settle for less than they are actually worth because they just believe that that's the way to go about it. So right now I'm talking on LinkedIn about supporting women in transitioning into cybersecurity and also new immigrants looking for roles. I'm glad to say because of this that I'm doing, some people are getting noticed. One of them
Great.
recently got a job offer. We will share the details soon. This is the first time talking about it. She told me about it last week. So I showcased her skills, and someone reached out, and she got an interview and eventually got the job.
Wow.
So yeah, so I'm doing a lot of this on LinkedIn. You can find me there. I'm beginning to get active on Twitter as well. My Twitter handle is at Sherifi, which is at SHERIFFIE. You can find me on Twitter as well. I used to be just on LinkedIn like full time, but now I'm getting to Twitter because interesting there as well. So this is where you can connect with me. I'll be happy
Awesome.
to meet people and talk to them.
Thank you for that. So Cyber Journey Nation, as you know, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And, if you are in a situation similar to the one that Sherifat is describing, maybe you're an immigrant, you're new to the country, you're trying to figure out how to navigate those obstacles of being somebody in that position, it's worth your time to spend some time with her. Because obviously she's doing a lot to help people in your position. So Sherifat, I just want to say thank you for sharing your truth, your knowledge, and your wisdom with us. And for that, we say thank you and take care.
It's a pleasure being here. Thank you, Daniel. Bye-bye.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did. So many key learnings that we can take away and apply tomorrow. There are 3 items that I'd like to key in on. First, transferable skills. The skills that we use on an everyday basis, well, those can be honed and perfected and learned elsewhere. Everything we learn, regardless of where we're learning it, is of value to us. So always embrace the opportunity to learn, because you never know that that thing you thought you would never use serves you on your journey. Number 2, relationships. Sherifat spoke about the importance of somebody who will mention your name when the doors are closed. Relationships are the foundation. They are at the core. They are at the heart of everything that we do. Time is never wasted spent nurturing and growing them, because when it really matters, you will find that you will be able to reap what you have sown. And finally, Sherifat does a lot of work with immigrants, specifically women immigrants who are looking to get into cyber. It is a passion of hers. So if that describes you, where you are in your journey, then I would challenge you to reach out to her on LinkedIn, take that first scary step, and begin building that relationship, because you never know. If you found this useful, I ask you just to tell one friend in your circle that this show can help them on their journey. Please leave us a review. I want to know what you liked, what you didn't like, and how we can improve. Your input directly shapes what you hear and what topics we cover. Finally, Cyber Journey Nation, thank you for listening. And until next time, keep learning and keep growing.